In this video, we'll simulate our PLC project. You might do this if you don't have access to the PLC, or if you want to test your project before you connect it to the PLC. Go up under PLC tab, select Simulation Mode. Now when we did that, it shows us that with yellow that we're in the simulation mode. Our address is given here, and it's also not built, so we'll have to rebuild it when we change to simulation mode. Now we'll select our address just to confirm, and it shows that we are connected to the simulator. Test the connection, we're okay. Then we'll transfer it just like we did when we're transferring to the PLC. Connect, transfer the project to the PLC. Now because it's not built, it'll tell us we have to build it before we transfer. We want to run it after the transfer. Select that. And we're going to have to rebuild. And run it. So down here it tells us everything's green, that's good. The yellow just tells us, reminds us that we're simulating, and that one you have to be very careful of because it's easy to forget and that you're in simulation mode, and you keep troubleshooting and that PLC never does what you want it to because you keep transferring it to simulator, not to the actual PLC. So our code's animated. Now to do something when we're in the simulation mode, we're going to need to build an animation table. So we go down here, if we right click, we can add a new animation table. You can give it a name if you want, or you can just stick with the default. It pulls up a blank table. In the first cell under name, if you double click, and then we pull on the ... it lists all the variables we have. I usually like to copy everything. So select the first one and then shift click, selects everything, OK it. Now all your variables are in the animation table. Now we want to see what our ladder program is doing at the same time, so I'm going to tile these. Now my stop button in real life is going to be normally closed, so I can force, so a normally closed stop button is going to give me a high signal on my input terminal, so I can force to simulate that. So click the force button, and on the stop I can either type it in as a 1, enter. F1 shows up, means it's forced to a high state. I could also use these buttons up here. That would force it low, that forces it high. So my stop button is closed. It's providing a high voltage, 24 volts, to my input terminal, which is telling this contact to close. So my stop button passes a signal through to here. If I close my start button, it should turn on my pump. So we can do that. We can force it up. It's a momentary button, and I force it low. So I momentarily push the start button. Pump goes on. Contact latches it on. If I want to stop it, force it, push the stop button momentarily. So it's working the way it should. Now we want to make sure after we've tested that we remove the forces, because if we were to transfer this project to the real PLC now, nothing would happen when I push my green and red start and stop buttons because I'm overriding it here with this force. So what we want to do is if we hit the button here, that would remove the force, gets rid of that one, and on this one I'd have to do the same. I just want to point out down here in our indicator bar, a red F shows up to remind you that there's a force in place. So as long as we keep an eye on this bar down here, it'll pretty much keep us out of trouble. So we force that. Now we've tested it, we know it works, we'd be ready to transfer it to the PLC.